welcome to another video on this channel, and today we are talking about witches. Specifically 3 films that I watched a couple of days ago, which all feature witches of some sort, and I guess the broader discussion of today will be female emancipation by means of sexual liberation, I guess, which is basically what witches mean in the context of film language. So let's talk about witches, shall we? But first, I have to put on my witch's hat on, so let me just see if I can get the magic to work. 1, 2, 3. Did it work? Oh yes, hello! I'm ready to talk about witches. This might be a bit too cumbersome though, so I'm gonna prop it right here. My witch's hat, and let's talk about some witches. So first off, I started with Season of the Witch, aka Hungry Wives by George A. Romero. I've been told that this is an entirely forgettable film, that, you know, if George Romero's name wasn't attached to this film, people wouldn't even remember it. I would like to respectfully disagree with that. I think Season of the Witch is very much in line with the Ira Levin stories, like the Stepford Wives, the Rosemary's Baby type of women's story, especially around the 60s and 70s. So this was made in 1972. So it's like right between, you know, that era of Rosemary's Baby and Stepford Wives, where you had, you know, the women's lib movement, you had second wave feminism, you had, you know, mini skirts, and you had the contraceptive pill, you had women stepping out of the home into the workplace, you had a displacement of roles between men and women in the household, especially in the United States, in American society, which is what we're going to focus on since all these films are set in the United States. So what that means is that for a film like this, it's about the inner lives of women, especially housewives, these women who grew up in the 40s, who got married post World War II, who, you know, have all these obligations to be homemakers and to take care of their husband and take care of their children, and then once their children are grown and their husbands don't really need them too much, you got that sense of, where do I belong, what do I do, what's my purpose here? And that's kind of where we begin the journey with Joni, who is our lead in Season of the Witch, who is the titular witch whose season it is. And she's a very interesting character. We witness a lot of her dreams, and you can tell she's got a lot of anxiety. We have a lot of visions of her feeling really anxious, of her not knowing where her place is in the home, but also what is the meaning of her life outside of her daughter and outside of her husband. And then you have all these friends, and you have all these vapid conversations about nothing. You have all these monotonous encounters, this day by day that just seems to be the same, and she goes to therapy to kind of figure out her issues. You can tell that she's someone who is struggling with identity issues, and she's struggling to find her place. And I think also by the way that she looks at her daughter, she almost like she has the envy of youth, you know. And I think that's actually a big theme in stories like this, where you have these women who were brought up to be homemakers in the 40s and the 30s, and now they're getting to the 70s where, oh, now I have to, you know, now I have to exist in this world, and all these young girls are going out and exploring their sexuality, and I don't know where I belong. So in this film you get Joni, who is going through that journey. She kind of battles intellectually with her daughter. She feels distant from her husband. She feels displaced in her friend group, and she turns to witchcraft because it calls to her as a way to find the liberation that she seeks. And I think that if you look at the film through just like an audience perspective of like, oh, is this an entertaining film? I mean, personally, I found it entertaining. I enjoyed watching it. I like the Stepford Wives. I like these kinds of like, you know, slow, kind of inner lives of women dramas. This is more of a drama than a horror film, really. It's just Romero made it, so I guess people directly go with the horror, but it really is a drama that it has supernatural elements, a magical realism kind of drama. And, you know, it's about a woman who is afraid of her own mind. She's afraid of her, of not existing, not having an identity. And it takes about 5 minutes before we actually hear her voice. You know, you have people speaking for her, people speaking over her, you have people speaking on her behalf, and that cements her as someone who doesn't seem to have a lot of agency in her own life. So I thought that was really interesting, and it's kind of slow moving, it doesn't move too fast, and it's very atmospheric and metaphorical as well. But to me, I think that was really effective because women's lives are marred with violence and aggression and blood, and you know, and I think horror films are kind of the best way through which to explore the female experience, because you have blood, you have gore, you have pain, you have assault, you have aggression, you have invasion, and all of that is very much a part of the female experience, or at least the experience of the uterus haver. You know, anyone who has a uterus will have experienced some kind of pain related to it in the course of their lives, and I think the horror film is a way to explore that and, you know, and investigate what that means, and kind of illustrate these feelings of pent-up aggression. And specifically witchcraft is and has always been seen as a women's, as something that is as womanly, something that is women transgressing, women becoming other, even more other than they already are. So I think witchcraft could be a metaphor for women's lib, you know, for that movement of like, you want to transgress from what it's expected from you, so you go into something that's different, something that is, you know, sexually liberating but also intellectually liberating, something that it's freeing your mind and your body. And you can really tell that Joni goes through that journey in the film. And towards the end, you have a small commentary on the women's place, and she accidentally shoots her husband because she has been having these nightmares of being assaulted in her home. There's home invasion and she doesn't understand where they're coming from. She thinks there's someone in her home. So her husband arrives from a work trip a day early and she thinks he's a home invader, so she shoots him. And you get these like commentary from the police that's like, you know, it's like a voiceover really saying like, oh, she got away with it because she's a woman, we'll mark it down as an accident, but I'm sure it wasn't, stuff like that, you know. Already like men are suspicious of women, you've got that already as part of the story. And then it cuts to her a while later at a party, and she looks young and she looks beautiful. She has embraced her witchcraft. She says, I'm a witch. And she doesn't look happy. It's a very The Graduate type of ending where she looks a bit confused and she looks a bit displaced. She doesn't look quite satisfied with her fate. And I think that, you know, that is just part of the story of her. She's never gonna find the place where she's fully happy because the world has not accepted her. She has not been accepted as part of the world. So I think this film has a lot to say. I know that Romero isn't fully happy with it. I read that he would have gone back to re-edit it if he could, or remake it. But honestly, I think it encapsulates the feeling of the era. I think he perhaps inadvertently captured the feeling of displacement and otherness that women felt at that time. I think he created a film that is on par with, in terms of the representation of the disillusioned and unhappy housewife, is on par with Rosemary's Baby and The Stepford Wives, you know, with the IR-11 with the IR11 stories, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very good. It looks really interesting. It's really beautiful colors, and it focuses a lot on her face. And she's the actress. What's her name? Jan White. She's really good. She has like this kind of lost look to her eye. She's got that innate sadness to her, which I think works really well with this character because she's very sad. She looks sad. She doesn't look like she's content with her life, and by all accounts she should be, because her husband makes a lot of money, her daughter is healthy and happy and successful, and yet she's not fully happy because she doesn't have individuality. She doesn't have something to rely on that's outside of her family circle, but also within herself. So I think this film has a lot to say about that. It's really interesting. I think definitely would recommend seeking it out if you're interested in that kind of storytelling. And I think it's a good Romero film. It is very unique and different, and I really enjoyed it. So moving on, the second film I want to talk about is The Love Witch, which I've been looking forward to for ages, like actually for a long time. It's one of those films I bought on DVD when it first came out, and then I just never got around to watching it. And I'll be honest, I was a little bit let down. I think it's too long. It could have done with the trim. It's about 25 minutes too long, I think. It looks absolutely gorgeous. Anna Biller, she designed the costumes and the sets, as well as editing and directing the film and writing it, and she did a fantastic job. I think it looks really beautiful. It's got that 70s vibe, the 70s color palette, and it's really a gorgeous film. And she somehow found actors in 2016 that looked like they're straight from the 70s, which is amazing. It's like you wouldn't like you don't think that these people exist anymore, you know, because they look so unique and they look so perfectly for their time. But I don't know if I quite got the message that she was trying to, and I don't quite know if I understood what she wanted to say with the film. I think the story is that this witch just wants to consume love, and she wants, you know, perfect love, and she wants, you know, and she consumes men, and she can never find a perfect man because men and people are imperfect, I guess. And I think the end is quite interesting, but I don't know if I have a lot to say about it because I don't quite get it, you know? I don't know. Maybe it's like I need a second watch to really wrap my head around it. But it's like I understand that that's like she's not a fully Elaine, she's not a fully empathetic character because she is kind of evil. She's kind of a horrible person, you know? She steals husbands and boyfriends and she kills them. She gets tired of them and she throws them away. And I think there's some interesting sequences where, you know, she's using her magic. That's kind of the strongest part of the movie. But then there's some of the witchcraft stuff. It's like witchcraft is seen as like a womanly thing, but then there's like all these guys in the coven, and you don't ever really get to see the coven do magic. They're just kind of naked people walking in circles. And the main coven guy is obviously like a super creep who's like touching girls on their boobs and stuff, and that's not cool, which I guess the film was making a point of, like, you know, showing these aggressive men exist in every type of situation. But I don't know if I get it. I think I'm confident enough in my intellect to admit when I don't fully understand what a film is trying to say. Like the summary of the film is: a modern-day witch uses spells and magic to get men to fall in love with her with deadly consequences. And it's kind of what happens, sure, but I don't know. It's like she never gets her comeuppance, but then she also never gets her success. So it just feels like the end just kind of fizzles out, you know? And let's see. Let's investigate. Let's see the reviews. I'm gonna go on Metascore and see what the best reviews have to say. So, according to David Elrich for IndieWire, he says that Biller spins an archly funny but also hyper-sincere story about the true price of the patriarchy. And it's true, I think that the film does well. Elaine kind of uses the tools of the patriarchy in order to carve a space for herself. You know, she understands how men think, and she understands how to use the way they think in order to get them to do things for her. I get that. I think that's well done, and I wish the film had spent more time with that instead of on, you know, the other thing. Like, the thing that I don't quite get, and maybe I'm wrong, and you know, if you understand it better than I do, please explain it to me, because I don't fully grasp it. Because it might just be a style of a substance thing where the style of it kind of got in the way of the film. I think it's a problem when filmmakers edit their own film. They don't quite know how to self-edit, you know, because it could have been a bit shorter, and I think if it'd been trimmed a little bit more, it would have been more clear in terms of the message. But I just don't quite get the place that the Coven has within fighting the patriarchal structures when it's like is this like a feminist movement that is fighting the patriarchy, but then there's like this guy who's a leader, and is that like a commentary on like men intruding on female spaces, or women not being able to find a space for themselves because of the overwhelming presence of men in every single space? I don't know. The lower tier in the reviews kind of call it satire, which I guess it is. I just don't think it's funny enough to be satire. I think the main actress is great. Samantha Robinson. She's really good. I think she does that. She does the whole shtick of the I'm a lady and I'm so alone and I'm so bad. You know, she does that really well, where it's like this fragile, like weak lady who needs a man to take care of her. Like she does that really well, where you can really like see that that's a facade, and the film does a good job at kind of showing all the performance of her appearance, of all the performative rituals that she does. And I think it kind of equates the performance of femininity to the ritual of witchcraft, where you have these rituals that women take part in, where you put the hair on and you put the makeup on and you put the tampon on and you do all these things in order to appeal to the patriarchy. And it's almost like being a woman is witchcraft, you know, where you do all these little rituals and you get men to love you. You get men to fall in love with you because you create this fantasy. And I think that translates into Elaine using her magic, her real magic, to attract men and to get them to fall in love with her and then get obsessed with her, you know. So that's, I think in that way it is a successful film. I think it does that really well. But as I said before, I think if it had been trimmed a bit more, if it had been cut like 20-25 minutes from the middle, I think that could have been a little bit more interesting. And the murder mystery aspect of it, I don't know if I fully I don't know if I buy it. I think it doesn't need it, you know? Like, it just feels like a plot device to get her to be with the cop guy rather than a genuine part of the story. So that seems unnecessary to me, seems superfluous to the story, to the commentary we're trying to get to, you know. But overall, I think The Love Witch is a really interesting film. I'm interested to see what else Anna Biller has to show us. I think she's a very creative filmmaker. The costumes and the sets and the writing and everything and the editing is very reminiscent of the 70s. It's clearly, she understands the genre, she understands the time period, and she understands the filmmaking style. So I'm interested to see if that translates into other films that she's going to do in the future. I'd be very keen to see what else she has to offer, because that was really interesting, and it was really well made. It was really well done. I'm excited to see more from that brain, you know, because it looks amazing. It looks really cool. And as I said before, I think the most impressive part of the film was the set design. Like, it's so gorgeous and it's so perfect for the time period. Like, it reminded me of something like A Clockwork Orange, you know, like that kind of the color palettes and very, very striking colors. And actually, having seen this right after Season of the Witch, they've got really similar like wallpaper colors and set designs. So really, she embraced the 70s and she was like, I'm making this film, I'm getting this film to look a certain way. And I think that's really cool. I really like that. Yeah, I think I'm interested to see what else she has to offer. And finally, the third film I watched, which was the one I was most excited for. It's the one I've been looking forward to the most for years, really. I think I've been wanting to see this film for the past about 7 years, but I never go around to it because it's I don't think it's out in the UK on DVD. Anyway, I haven't found it to buy, and it's streaming on Shudder. It's The Lords of Salem, which is by Rob Zombie, and it stars Sherry Moon Zombie, who's Rob Zombie's wife. And this is, first of all, I really liked it. I think it's really cool. It's certainly a departure from his previous work. Another disclaimer, I like Rob Zombie movies. I think they're fun to watch. I think The Devil's Rejects is really cool. I like House of a Thousand Corpses. I haven't seen the newer ones, and I haven't seen his Halloween films, but those two I really like. And I don't know, I feel like sometimes it's just fun to watch people clearly enjoy making violent, weird, gory shit, you know? So that's kind of how I feel when I'm watching those movies. I'm like, you're clearly having a good time, so I'm having a good time with you. And with this, you can tell that he was thinking a lot about witchcraft and womanhood in witchcraft, but also history and metaphors. And first of all, I think the theme of this night was, please let women be vengeful and ugly and mean, because that's great. And I think this film really culminated in like ugliness in womanhood in a good way. Often women aren't allowed to be ugly, to be horrendous, to be vengeful, and to be mean, and to be horrid, unless they're like the villains, you know? And I don't perceive these witches as the villains, because it's clear that we are following them and we're with them, and it's more of a journey of discovery, a journey of seeking liberation and emancipation from the patriarchal structures that hold them down and pull them under. So we begin with this satanic witchcraft ritual of I think birthing the son of Satan or whatever, I don't know. And this is in Salem in the 1700s or whatever, whenever the witch trials were happening. And the film is set in Salem, and the main character we discover is a descendant of the reverend guy who was like arresting all these witches and killing all of them. And the witches want her. They want her because she's the key to bringing about the liberation of the witches. And this woman, she is Heidi. She has a fulfilling life. She has a dog, she has friends, she goes to work, she goes to AA meetings, but it's a very monotonous life, very monotonous existence. So she gets this record from this band called the Lords, and they call them the Lords of Salem, and it's a song that is, we find out, is a witch song, and she starts having these nightmares, these horrific nightmares. And this is the witches coming back to claim her. And I think the visuals in this film, first of all, are gorgeous. It's really beautiful film. It was shot digitally, but they treated the they treated the image really well, so it looks really beautiful. It's got really nice rich texture to it. The lighting is gorgeous, the sets are really cool, the visuals, the kind of metaphorical imagery is really stunning, and it's really interesting. And there's goats, because why not have goats, you know, naked ladies and goats. This is basically the Vivitch. Except this goat, his name is Noodles, so pretty cool. But yeah, so she starts to have these nightmares, and then she gets visited by these witches, and you know, she starts to like emotionally pull away from her friends and from her coworkers and from her life, really. And she kind of is welcomed into the coven, and she kind of has this whole ceremony where she's freed from her mortal coil of something, or something like that. Like, I think according to the description of the film, it says like, is Heidi going mad, or the Lord's back to take revenge on Salem, Massachusetts? I don't know if maybe that's what it is, but like, I didn't get that from the film. I didn't get revenge on Salem. I got more like, it's revenge on the people that exterminated their religion, and then also liberation from the chains that have imprisoned them for centuries. So I think it's kind of a positive story, because there's some instances where I feel inclined to go with the bad guy, you know, like when you have stories about artificial intelligence and like robots. I'm like, well, I mean, I can see their point. You know, humans are kind of a cancer on Earth, you know? And with witchcraft, I'm like, these women were persecuted for just chilling naked in the woods. The fuck? Just let them be, man. Just let them be naked in the woods. You know, just let them live deliciously, you know? Like, why gotta be like that? You know, Mr. Reverend Hawthorne. And fun fact about Reverend Hawthorne, who is a real person, who is the family member of our character Heidi. Apparently, Nathan Hawthorne, the author of the Scarlet Letter, is actually related to Mr. Reverend Hawthorne. So that's pretty cool. I thought it was a pretty cool fact to share with you. But anyway, I think what Lords of Salem is trying to do is kind of, you know, allow women to be free and to fight and break away from the pressures and the expectations of this world, of this patriarchal society. And it's all very metaphorical, you know? It's all that kind of, I think if you've got that in the mind, which I always do because that's my area of study, but if you've got that in your mind, it kind of gives the film another layer. I get that if you're not thinking about that stuff when you're watching, you're just like, what the fuck is happening? Why are these naked women piled up? And that's actually another thing I want to talk about, is the nudity. It is very, it's well present. Like, there's a lot of female nudity in this film. Full frontal, you know, naked ladies all over the place. But it's not sexual nudity. I think that's important to stress. It is not sexualized nudity. It's not sensual nudity. These women are naked for ritual purposes, and that's it. It's not sexy. You see all these girls, all these women walking towards the camera naked, and you're not thinking, sexy ladies. You're thinking, ritual. Right, got it, witches. It's kind of like the Vivitch in that way. I think this film is like it's like a cousin of the Vivitch, because they're very similar in that way. Which is great, because I love the Vivitch. I'm calling the Vivitch because that's how you spell it, but I know it's the witch. It's kind of like the witch in that way, and you could do a double bill of those, and it would be like a really cool evening. You'd be like, yeah, I want to live deliciously. I want to live deliciously. Which is, I think, why I like witch stories. I like that women have this ability to do something that is completely ours, that is completely outside of what the patriarchy expects. And it's about breaking from the chains, and it's about living deliciously, as in you live for yourself, you live for your heart, for your soul, for what you want, you live for your freedom, for your absolute self. And I think living for yourself means living deliciously. I think living for your own needs means breaking away from what's expected from you, and that's what witchcraft in these films means to me. That's what I perceived when I was watching these films. I thought, these are women who are breaking away from what's expected of them. These are women who are separating themselves and disengaging with expectations and with set roles. You know, not even gender roles, because I don't think that they're, you know, they don't seem to be particularly bothered with gender roles. More about femininity, and what is femininity, what does that mean. So to me, it's about emancipation, and that's what I said earlier. I think it's about emancipation. It's about completely giving away any semblance of giving a shit. Completely separating thyself from what the world wants you to do, and just doing your own thing. And I like that, you know. And all these films kind of have different levels of that. Like Season of the Witch, it's like women who are housewives feeling displaced and kind of deciding to take that back and to not allow themselves to be put in a corner, basically, or forgotten about. And The Love Witch is about taking the patriarchy, taking what men have built, and working that as a way to control what controls them, to take back control over their lives. And in The Lords of Salem, it's about complete emancipation from the patriarchal structures. So I think all of that kind of presents the thesis of witchcraft in film. To me, it's always been about women's liberation. I think that's probably well established, you know. I think if you're interested in that specifically, those movies are really good watches, especially Lords of Salem. I think it's awesome. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really fun. And yeah, I think it was a successful day. I really enjoyed watching these witch movies. It's kind of renewed my interest in these kinds of movies. I hadn't watched like a witch movie in a long time. I think the last time I watched like a proper witch movie was The Autopsy of Jane Doe. So I'm gonna look for more of those. And I'll leave you with the idea of grabbing a couple of those, sitting down, spending an evening with that thought, especially if you're a woman, or if you have a uterus, or if you've experienced the crushing weight of the patriarchy on your shoulders. I think it's kind of cathartic to kind of watch these women completely smash it to pieces, or rework it, or reshape it, and it's, you know, it kind of gives me a feeling of like, yes, you know, of success, you know, of happiness, I guess. So I had a good time. I enjoyed watching those films. Maybe I'm a radical feminist, but, you know, it is what it is. So thank you so much for watching. Please let me know what you think of these films down there. If you like The Love Witch more than I do, please tell me why. I'm actually really curious. I haven't really talked to anyone about it before because I've only seen it recently, but I'd love to hear what you have to say about it. And if you've seen Season of the Witch or Lords of Salem, if you like Rob Zombie movies, let me know. Put them down there. I've got all my socials, you know, Letterboxd. Follow me, I'll follow you right back. And I'll see you next time for my Nightmare on Elm Street video. That's coming soon. I'm so excited. Yes! Freddy's dead! Cool. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you later. Bye!
I think that if you want love, you have to give love.